So a couple weeks ago, I made a video about how to let go, get over the fear of your manifestations not happening. And the response to that video was pretty big, and it made me realize, okay, we need to be talking more about these fear identities that are keeping us from getting our manifestations. And so today I'm going to go a little bit more into that. But before we get into that, I will introduce myself, because that's the proper thing to do, and tell you that my name is Genevieve. I'm a manifestation coach. I've been coaching for a while, but my original platform was Instagram. So I will link below my Instagram page if you'd like to go there and see all the reels and slides that I've made. A lot of good information, and there's also links below for other stuff. Like I have a great self-concept course down there that is like a 31-day, like at your foundation self-concept reset course. So that's available to you. You can also sign up to do the one-on-one coaching with me if you need help to see your own blind spots, to get some clarity on what is the story going on with you that is sabotaging your manifestations. I'm pretty good at helping you with that. So that is all down there. And I think that's it. So let's just jump right in. I titled this video, "Why Do Your Fears Manifest So Quickly?" or how to stop your fears from manifesting so quickly. And I am the kind of coach that I'm not just going to talk about like surface level assumptions, like assuming things might go wrong or assuming that your SP doesn't love you or whatever. Like those are assumptions that are coming from identities. So in my coaching, which is very much law of assumption based, I'm all about going straight to your I am. Like, who are you really being? Who are you actually thinking is your I am? And all of the surface level assumptions that are in your conscious mind, like all of the things that are happening up here in your ego and conscious mind, the little fears, the little things that pop up throughout the day, those conscious thoughts, they're bubbling up from the deeper rooted I am. So I'm all about, let's get to the root of who is it that you think you are so that we can actually get you at the root. Because the short answer as to why do your fears manifest so quickly, as opposed to if you feel like you're working really hard to, get positive and make the positive shifts happen, and yet you have like one day of negativity and you feel like everything just explodes. Why is that happening? Well, it's happening because you have a much more rooted and protected identity around avoiding your fears, or, I mean, I could say embodying your fears, but what you're actually doing in a rejection identity or a fear identity or a disempowered identity in general is you're actually trying to protect ever feeling those things. So if you're really afraid of rejection, for example, you are going to do your damnedest to always make sure that you are protected from rejection first. And what that means is you're actually going through your life rejecting everything, including success, including your specific person, including love in general. You are like hyper vigilant to putting space between you and the thing that your ego mind, your conscious mind thinks it wants, but you're putting all this space because you think, if I actually got that, this is very deep in the subconscious, but your subconscious mind thinks, if I actually got the thing that is so valuable to me, that I really, really want, that would feel like so much pressure. It would be such high stakes that it's much, much better to feel like I'm protecting any chance of being rejected. Because when something's high value to you, it feels like the stakes are so heightened that you're going to be rejected, or you might be rejected. So you want to protect that. You want to control that. So it's not necessarily like you're walking around like wanting to be rejected. That's the thing that I think confuses a lot of people, is in their conscious mind. They're like, well, I would never want to be taken advantage of or rejected. So why would my old story or my shadow self, or whatever you want to call it, why would that part of me be manifesting that kind of stuff? And it's not because you want to be rejected. It's, again, I want you to see it in a more empowered way of you are actually rejecting the thing that you think you want first. Like your SP, for example, you're trying to control your SP because you are so afraid of their rejection. But again, you're trying to control them through your own rejection of them, if that makes sense. You're pushing them away and you're saying, okay, they've got to do this, they've got to do that. I'll feel okay when they do all this stuff to like come together to make it okay for me, but I'm not going to accept them until they do this. And you're just so in this like pressure cooker, like I've got to protect myself from rejection. Why? Because your identity, your fear identity is so attached to rejection. I hope this is making sense, because I get it that in your conscious mind, it's very confusing, because you're like, well, like I said, I would never want to manifest being rejected by them. But when you really see that at the subconscious level of you, you are rejecting them first. Your fear is saying this person or this job, this opportunity, whatever it is that you're manifesting, getting that thing is not actually very safe. It's just not safe. It's too high stakes. Rejection could be implied. It's just danger at every turn if you actually got that thing you want. So I am going to protect myself to manage that. And I'm going to put my creation energy into managing, making sure that I don't get rejected. And it's actually going to look in the physical world, it's going to look like I am being rejected, but really it's mirroring me. Because remember, the 3D world is a mirror. So it looks like it's rejecting you, but it's actually mirroring that you are rejecting it, that thing that you think in your conscious ego mind that you really, really want. It can be so empowering. And again, I'm bringing this up a lot because I really want you to see it that way. It can be so empowering to finally see the mechanisms of your shadow self, your fear identities, whatever, this is all just semantics, whatever you want to call it. It can be so empowering to see the mechanisms of that part of your subconscious mind clearly. Because once you really understand the science of what your subconscious mind thinks it's supposed to be doing and why it's really interested in protecting your fears and therefore manifesting your fears, when you really get that clarity and familiarity about, okay, this is the mechanisms of my subconscious mind in my fear identity, and this is just what it does. This is what the fear identity does. And let me clarify too for a second. When I say fear identities, I mean things like, it's an I am that sounds like I'm afraid to be loved. I'm afraid of being successful. I'm afraid of being noticed. I'm afraid of being chosen. Those kinds of things. And again, to the ego mind that really wants things to be logical and very straightforward and also moral, because the ego loves things to be, moral and right and organized. These things don't make sense. Your ego is in resistance to a lot of these fearful, shadowy parts of you because they don't really make sense to the ego mind. And so that's also why this part of you is so hidden from your conscious mind. But when you are really open to seeing yourself clearly and you actually invite your subconscious, like you actually say to your subconscious and yourself, hey, I trust myself so much, subconscious mind, that I'm totally willing and open to see my deepest, shadowy, weird parts of myself clearly. Like, I'm not going to keep developing an ego that is obsessed with perfection, obsessed with positivity, obsessed with getting things right. I am so open to seeing what's clearly going on in my whole being, because when you reclaim your whole being, that is when you can more easily shift your whole I am, because you really do. If you want to have manifestations at these foundational levels, and that's what big relationships, big jobs, big opportunities, your health, all of that stuff is manifesting from your true foundational I am. These aren't superficial things that are just like casual and therefore easy to manifest. These are big identity shifts. And for you to make those big identity shifts, you need to have clarity on so what is the old story? Like really the old, not just the superficial assumptions that are springing from the old story, although those are also important to look at, but what's the really deep identity in me? Like, what am I most afraid of in terms of these things like relational problems and success things? Like what's my deepest fear? And it's usually things in most people like being so afraid of being alone forever, being so afraid of never being successful and therefore being afraid of being successful. And I know it's like it's a total weird thing that the ego does not get. But in some part of your subconscious mind, it makes sense because that's what it's doing. So again, the reason that your fears are manifesting so quickly instead of all this work that you're doing to get your positive manifestations is because your fears are already supported by this much deeper fear identity that is really established and just got a lot of momentum in you. And this brings me to my point of why I am the kind of coach that really, really encourages you and supports you in really uncovering, as long as you need, uncovering your old stories or your shadow self or your repressed emotions or whatever. Not because I want you to overanalyze yourself. So that's where the thin line kind of comes in, is I don't want you to overanalyze yourself. You don't need to be going deep into like, where did all this stuff come from or whatever. But it's that, again, the more you have very clear familiarity with what the identity of I am afraid to be chosen, or I am rejected, and therefore I'm creating rejection fears. When you see the whole cause and effect loop of what's happening in the deepest part of your subconscious, and you're so non-threatened by it, that's the thing I want you to practice, is looking at it honestly and being non-threatened by it. Because the more you are threatened by it, and again, this is why I encourage looking at it, the more you are threatened by it, the more you're giving power to it. Because another thing when it comes to fear, that if you've seen me a lot, you've heard me say this before, but I'm gonna say it again, I'm gonna say it a lot because it's important, is that the more you fear something, the more you are legitimizing something, because you only fear things that you think are a legitimate threat to you. So the more that you are avoidant in a fearful way of like, oh, I don't really want to look at myself and I don't want to look at all that junk because if I do, it'll manifest. Like if you're hijacking that thing you've heard manifestation coaches say, and you're using it as an excuse to be like, oh, I don't want to look at that stuff, you are continuing to legitimize it, keep the old pattern in place, because you're not doing the deeper work to see, okay, there's clearly something deeply rooted in my subconscious that needs to be freed, that needs to just be seen clearly, needs to be brought into the conscious light of the conscious mind so that it can be processed differently. And just the nature of doing that frees you. Like you don't even need to figure it out or fix it. There's just something magical about bringing the whole shadow system, if that's what we want to call it, the whole old story system up into the conscious mind, seeing, okay, that's what I'm doing. I see it. I'm afraid of being alone forever, and I'm also afraid of being chosen. I'm afraid of both because they tend to go hand in hand. This is just an example, but say that's the thing that is going on. Once you uncover that, just seeing it helps you to see, okay, I have choice here. I really can choose another thing. But as I said in the other video where I talked about these kind of fear identities, it probably is going to be important for you to feel some of the feelings that come along with that old story, because part of what keeps it so rooted in you is the energy of fear itself. So if you have a lot of fear energy inside of your body, because it's a physical manifestation, these emotions that you have, and eventually they're going to catch up to you, which is why I always say you don't need to fix the fear, you don't need to fix any feeling, but you do need to consciously be applying the new meaning, the new direction you want to channel that feeling. So it doesn't matter if it's fear or anger or sadness or shame, or it doesn't matter what the core uncomfortable feeling is, as long as in your conscious mind you're interacting with it in a different way and therefore directing it towards your new I am in a positive, encouraging, non-threatening way. That is, like, in my own life and in the successful people I see around me, that is like a huge just catalyst to really successful manifestations, when you become so unafraid of yourself and so willing to feel all the feelings that you used to be so afraid of feeling. Because part of what keeps those fear identities in place is because you're afraid of the fear itself. You are trying to avoid those situations because you don't want to feel how afraid you are. You don't want to, and so that's why you're trying to control everything to make everything be perfect so that you don't have to face the fear that you've been storing and repressing deep inside. So when you finally just allow yourself to feel it, it's like this weird magic happens, and suddenly you're like, whoa, I really can choose whatever. I'm no longer afraid of anything that could happen inside of me. I'm not afraid of my deepest, darkest shame. And therefore, because I've reclaimed all these parts of myself, I can really effectively choose my new I am and just stand in it, because I know that I'm neutral to everything. I can choose whatever I want. And if I want to choose this new I am where I'm easily chosen, I easily feel safe in love relationships, or I easily know that I'm successful, it's just easier to stick with it, because you're not fighting against the old story that so badly wants to control and protect, because you're trying to like shove all those fears and feelings and just everything that you've been so conditioned to fear. You're not trying to shove that away anymore. So the how is really to just uncover, just to be and explore within your own self. Like, let go of the 3D, which is what you know, all coaches encourage, especially me as you're doing this part of it, really let go of the 3D and be like, okay, you know what? The 3D can only ever follow me. So I am going to really put myself first in the most authentic way possible and do these deeper dives of like, who have I really been being? Because that's what's manifesting. Whoever I've really been being behind every little technique I do, or just all the things I'm trying to manifest, like there's some deeper, usually kind of shadowy or part of you behind all that that is secretly fueling it and therefore secretly sabotaging you because you're not seeing it clearly. You're not reclaiming it in a very conscious, clear, and empowered way. So the how is to dive in there and uncover it, see what you find. And of course, if you need a coach, that can be super helpful to kind of give you, because often someone outside of you can have objective clarity on like what's really going on with you. And once you see it, you can explore those emotions, you can reclaim those emotions, and therefore channel that emotional energy into your new I am in a more fearless way. So I hope that makes sense to you today. I know it is almost confusing, maybe paradoxical, because so much of manifesting is very paradoxical and therefore confusing to the ego mind that wants everything to be linear and controlled and easy. So it's one of those things where you just have to trust the process and know that bottom line, your actual I am, who you really think you are, who you are acting as if you are, that is what is manifesting. And it doesn't matter if you affirmed 1,000,000 trillion times, if you're not actually digging out those weeds of your old subconscious selves that are still active and you're just not seeing them because they're so subconscious to you. If you're not really doing that deeper stuff, then it doesn't matter if you affirm 1,000 times a day, because it's just going to be a superficial band-aid over a dam, like a huge dam that's about to break, of just subconscious energy that's still ruling you. So let me know what other questions you have in the comments below. I really like to see your questions and see what's kind of on your minds in terms of how to manifest and how to actually get the changes in yourself and therefore in your 3D that you want. So let me know, and I will see you in my next video. All right, bye.